And welcome back to Ship of Fools, a nautical D&D podcast, although there will be no D&D played in this episode. Instead, we're just going to talk about it. You are...
Who knows what'll happen, you know?
You're tuning in. I don't have any dice in the room with me. Actually, I don't think I can say that because I drop dice all over my apartment, so very likely there's a dice somewhere in this room.
This will be the first time I don't have to spend all week editing out all of your dice noises.
Oh, don't worry. I have mine. I'll do them.
Welcome to Ship of Fools' special Q&A episode. We have recently reached 50 episodes on our main feed, and so we are celebrating.
So everyone who said we could never do it, take that.
Take that, haters.
My teachers in 3rd grade said that I would never have a successful D&D podcast. My teacher in 3rd grade was my mom because I was homeschooled.
Wow.
Oh, I forgot about that. Man, Andy, we're the only ones who held out.
Yeah.
The only ones who went to 3rd grade.
This explains a lot about how Noelani is improperly socialized.
So fucking true.
We've been receiving your questions over the past few weeks, and we have compiled a list of them that we are going to answer for you. So... with that.
So to all the haters who said we could never answer a list of compiled questions, take that.
Yeah, and huge thank you and shout out.
Well, I guess I don't want to gloat prematurely. An hour from now, I'll say take that.
We could do a really bad job. But sincerely, thank you to everybody who took the time out of their day to sauce us and ask.
And you know what? To everyone who didn't, here we are still. So I don't know what you gained from this.
Okay, so our first question comes to us via Instagram from Alabaster, and it's just very, simple logistical, what are y'all's pronouns, as in us, the people? So I am she, her.
We should say our names, though, just in case any of our dear listeners, by now, at episode 50, still can't tell our voices apart.
It's true.
Yeah, Hannah.
So I'm Hannah.
I'm Andy, and I'm he, him.
I'm Noelani and/or Nani and/or Nolan, and I use they, them, and/or she, her, and/or he, him. And/or are also pronouns in that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm making that a thing.
Only when he's doing Star Wars cosplay.
And I'm Taylor. She, her.
Cool. Next question. Kim on Tumblr would like us to rank the nations of the Lunluma Ocean based on the comprehensiveness of their cultural resource protection laws and policies.
Ooh.
For sure.
Hannah, I think I'm going to toss this one to you.
Hannah, let you take this one.
Yeah. So honestly, I think at the top of the list, I was thinking about this, and I think it's probably Avon, which is the high elf kingdom.
That tracks. They've got a long time to live.
Exactly. Their long lifespans, they're very invested in kind of making sure that their cultural resources are protected. And also, elves are all about kind of, the beauty and pristineness of nature. So I think they've got a pretty, robust environmental and cultural resource protection laws. I also think that then anytime that you're making a list of who has the most laws and policies, Lithios is near the top just by the nature of them having a lot of laws. So they're probably also pretty near the top in terms of cultural protection.
But they only serve their own interests.
Yeah.
Bastards.
But the laws are there. The laws do exist. On the low end of the scale, Benswith kind of prides themselves on not having laws. That's why Solaris is living there, and he certainly does not care about cultural resource protection.
Wow, Benswith is the offshore banking accounts of the world.
Literally.
Except it's gotta be the onshore.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Nergal, hello. This guy's just stealing left and right.
To be fair, we don't know where Nergal really lives.
Yeah, Nergal doesn't live in Benswith.
You know, at some point he was at least temporarily residing in Benswith with his...
Finish the sentence, yeah.
I don't know what they are to each other now.
I mean, exes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but are they friendly exes? I mean, I know we saw them together, but things were kind of tense.
We didn't codify if they were divorcees or if they were
just exes. Maybe they're ex-fiancés.
Yeah.
Oh!
I don't think they were ever married, just because I feel like that would have come up.
Yeah, I don't think Solaris would ever get married to someone like Nergal, frankly. I think Solaris is too much of a bitch.
I can neither confirm nor deny. If you see Solaris again, you can ask him.
That's gonna be the first thing I say.
And roll a perception check to see if there's a tan line on Nergal's ring finger.
Another question from Kim on Tumblr. Rank the places of the Lunluma Ocean where you, the cast members, would want to live the most.
Oh shit. I don't feel like I've been to enough to have a certain answer, but
Yeah, I feel like off the top of my head, actually, does the Bluefin Tropical Resort count as a nation?
Yeah, that would count. This question doesn't ask about nations, it's just places. So,
Oh yeah, of all the places we've been, that seems like the most chill and fun.
yeah.
They've got a magic wall that keeps storms away. No one's attacking it except for that one time people did.
Predictably, perhaps, I'm gonna have to say either the Dragon Isles or Erebor.
Yeah.
And that is because I more or less conceptualized Erebor as looking kind of like a combination of Scotland and Iceland, which
Yeah.
are good places to be if you suffer from heat intolerance.
Yeah, Erebor is like Scotland, Iceland, and like Scandinavia in general, and so it's that would be high up on the list for me also.
yeah.
Yeah, lots of like fjords and windswept moors and things. I like that, but also the Dragon Isles just seems like a fucking party all the time. So I'd be
Yeah.
down for that.
I forgot about the Dragon Isles. That's a good answer.
Also, Angel Isle.
No, I'm okay.
To each their own.
See, you say that, but
Angel Isle is actually just Amsterdam. It's actually shockingly nice, but nobody ever talks about it.
except for it's dark all the time.
Yes, it's night Amsterdam.
We haven't been to Erebor, but since I was also picturing it as sort of, full of fjords and such, that seems like a pretty nice place to live. And honestly, I bet Aban is beautiful.
Yeah.
Also, Aban, another place that, as far as we know, no one is attacking.
Yeah, so true. What's the point? Gillsbury honestly would be really cute, so long as it wasn't actually like under siege or whatever. But
The problem with Gillsbury is there's just nothing there.
you can.
All they do for fun in Gillsbury is sit outside.
You don't have to stay there the whole time. You don't have to like be a homebody, Andy.
Well, but it is kind of
If you live in Gillsbury, you do.
inconvenient to travel across the oceans.
I travel to inconvenient places all the time.
Our next question comes from Caroline on Instagram. She says, "What is Milson's daily schedule?"
Oh God, I'm thrilled for
Who the
this
fuck is Milson?
The
Friend.
Your friend!
Your friend who
The
dealt us
Aarakocra.
drugs?
Yeah.
God.
Well, the thing is that they are a pirate sometimes, and so a very different schedule depending on if they're on Angel Isle or if they're out being a pirate. But assuming that they're on Angel Isle,
Reagan's been out as a pirate this whole time.
probably wake up at like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Do drugs immediately.
Which ones, Hannah?
Yeah, I know. I should have pulled up my like very long list of Angel Isle drugs. That
It's actually the longest lore document in this entire game.
it's a hefty section that we did not get into nearly as much as I thought we might.
That'll be like Reagan's whole epilogue at the end of the show.
I was gonna say, you should commend me for my restraint if we didn't get that deep into it.
Probably something like this is where the issue that I don't do drugs comes in. Something that wakes you up in the morning.
Oh,
Speed.
so Milson takes Adderall.
Like a high cup of Joe, am I right, folks?
And then, just generally kind of hanging out, getting thrown out of multiple places, almost certainly. There's a dancing on Angel Isle sometimes, gambling at that casino that you guys saw on the waterfront. Occasional. Well, actually, Milson doesn't really like to go in the water as much as possible, being a bird and all who can get kind of waterlogged. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, most Aarakocra from the Lunluma Ocean would probably be like water birds.
Oh my god, was Milson
Yeah.
a giant Nurgle this whole time and we just didn't notice?
Where are the seagull Aarakocra?
Yeah. Or like a pelican or something. Yeah, and then just, they're generally hanging out. is what you can assume with their daily routine.
Love that.
Do they have friends?
Yes, but like
Are they actually friends, or are they like,
Yeah.
oh, hi, Milton, and then
Yeah.
they're like, oh my god, that guy.
mostly the latter, yes.
Oh,
That sucks.
Yeah. They probably have some, like, solid friends, but there's definitely a reason they were so excited to see Reagan.
And it's not Reagan's glowing personality. That's for
Nobody's
sure.
ever excited to see Reagan. Except maybe Gersh.
We also have speaking of daily routines, we have a question from Jenna asking, what would Nurgle do on a day where he could do anything he wants by thinking about it? And I really would love to know if I'm supposed to be taking this as that Nurgle has, like, godlike powers for a day.
What do you mean for a day? Like,
What would Nurgle do on a day where he could do anything he wanted by thinking about it?
I mean,
Ooh, who's gonna answer?
Go on, Andy.
I think we might have been about to say the same thing. He'd get some French fries.
That is what I was about to say. Yeah, truly a mountain.
That's
of French
always
fries.
his number one goal.
Like
Yeah.
all day long? That's like his one.
And no, I think once he's locked that down, he'd probably have other things to do.
He'd be like, you know how Donkey Kong has that huge banana horde? Nurgle would have that, but for French fries.
Would he get like a special kind of fry if he could just get it by thinking about it?
He'd get several different varieties.
oh, so he
Any
is.
kind you can name.
Crinkle cut.
So he's a connoisseur.
He's not like a purist. I respect that.
Nah, he's down for whatever. Well, maybe not whatever. I don't know. There might be some kind he doesn't like.
What do you think is his like number one? Like a curly fry, a waffle fry, a classic French?
Absolutely not a waffle fry. Probably a classic French.
I
I'm
agree.
thinking like those kind of thick ones that you get in Britain, like a chip.
Like a steak fry?
Oh, I love a steak fry.
I guess, is that what a steak fry is?
I don't think so. I think he would like ones a little more narrow than that. The ones that are easiest for him to just turn his neck vertical and swallow.
Yeah, fit in his mouth.
Oh, like a good old McDanks fry.
Yeah.
I fucking love McDanks fries.
Wow.
But also, I don't know. The inner workings of Nurgle's mind are mysterious and sinister, potentially.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy. Is Nurgle gay?
I don't know.
I don't think Nurgle could be defined by human sexuality terms.
Is he attracted to other species of bird?
I don't know. That's actually an interesting question. Like, because he's not inherently a bird.
Yeah.
But when he is in the form of a bird, does he take on all aspects of a bird, including attraction to other birds?
Because, if he liked ducks, then eating a curly fry would be good practice.
Wow.
Horrible.
That's quite the walk.
I didn't like that journey we went on.
I didn't either. I had to say it, though, because I had to think it.
Like, how much separation does Nurgle feel from his body? Or is he just full in, like, yes, I am Nurgle, a seagull. And then 10 minutes later, he's like, yes, I am Nurgle, a crab. This is me.
Is it like Animorphs where, like, he knows his true body is a gull, or does his true body not exist?
Well, I think his true body doesn't really exist, is the thing.
Yeah.
Finn created him into the form of a gull, but before that, he was a shapeless energy being.
So gull is, like, his favorite morph, rather than, like, his... But he doesn't even get to control it, because Finn's the one summoning him.
I don't know if he was a shapeless energy being.
I guess really Hannah is the one who just knows the answer to this question, because it's up to her.
Yeah, I do know the answer to this question. He's like, the form of the gull is the form that he's taking so that he can be amongst mortal society without panic.
Oh, so like Ariel.
Sure, like Ariel. Yeah. He's an aberration.
Hey, Hannah, given the fact that it's the whole day and Nurgle is doing whatever he wants by thinking about it, would he be a gull?
No, probably not. And he'd also try to spread the lurker's name, and then he'd also just like kind of see
yeah.
like what Finn wanted to do, because they're buddies.
Nice. We could hang out.
Aw.
Yeah.
Do tater tots count as French fries?
No.
Okay.
Wow.
Get that shit out of here.
Like, they're in the same category, but they aren't French fries.
Another Nurgle question. Tyler on Instagram would like to know if I can talk about my methods of making Nurgle's voice. Honestly, I'm not sure if I can. You just kind of like screech from deep in your throat. It's like a ah! Really, I open my mouth wide, like my mouth is fully open, and then it's just kind of like a screech in my throat.
Like, were you to picture a beak on Hannah's face, it does look like a gull.
It's guttural.
It is guttural. Like, it's very much in the back of my throat. Your seagull noise is better than mine. I know I've told this story before, but about how I, like, looked up so many before Andy summoned Nurgle the first time. I spent so much time listening to seagull noises on YouTube, trying to replicate them, and then just gave up and was like, I'm just gonna make a screeching noise, and we're just gonna go with it for the rest of the podcast. Yeah. But I do think I've gotten better over time.
That's pretty good.
You gotta get a little bit of the whistle tone in there.
Yeah. I think I've gotten better over time at, like, emoting with it.
You definitely have.
Like, he definitely has more, like,
Mm.
excited or, like, displeased.
Do a sad Nurgle.
Oh, that hurt to hear.
That genuinely sounded wounded. I can do a pretty convincing pigeon.
That's like me talking to my cats.
Oh, all right. This is my pigeon.
Oh, Andy's is good.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I can do some, but I can't do them right now.
I can
Yeah, I
do
can't do a pigeon.
the noise that I learned that cockatiels make the other night when they're mad, which is
Oh.
I was like,
Wow.
sounded like a cat. It was very strange.
That's the noise that I make at my cats when I'm mad.
Yeah.
That's something they did.
So yeah, there's been part cockatiel all along.
Or their bird noise.
Okay. Okay. Concept. You TPK next session. What classes and characters do you think that you'd play next?
Hey, what fucks? Sicko.
From Magnus on Patreon.
Oh, okay.
That is a good fucking question, Magnus.
Yeah, because in this specific scenario, you guys are making characters for
Over halfway through the campaign.
yeah, and for this setting and like
Yeah.
for this story, I guess.
Ooh, okay. I have an answer. I would go for a full caster this time around.
Well, I mean, technically you did. You just also multi-classed.
Yeah, true. But now that we've, I've learned that it's more fun sometimes, or at least less tiring, to fight the genre that you're in as than it would be to, optimize for the genre you're in. So I think it'd be really cool to play like an astronomy kind of wizard. I know it's not like an actual flavor of wizard, but like a ship's navigator who like has this very like celestial but like dark but like in the comfort of night kind of thing, and like lean into like somebody who is guided by the magic of the sea and studies that magic and uses that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Wait, how is that fighting against the genre? Wait.
No, I say it would be more. This would be not
Oh,
fighting the genre.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. I like that.
Because my backup, my like second choice character that I would have made if I wasn't Finn was the druid lighthouse keeper who leaves his lighthouse to see the world. And I do think that's a fun character, but if I was to do it now, I think it'd be too similar to Finn, because I just did a character whose whole thing was leaving his home to see the big wide world
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably, in terms of backstory, I think my character would be someone else from AAA, like, who joins the fight. Just because that seems like a very convenient way to be a character who's already up to speed on the situation, knows some of the same NPCs, can pretty easily slot in.
Yeah.
But what class would they be? What would their deal be? Or maybe I'd play Baleen as a rogue.
Oh my god.
That would be
Wow,
fun.
that'd be
And then I
so
could
cute.
spend every session talking about how amazing my dead friend Finn was.
Oh man, to play Nira. Just do fucking absolutely nothing related to the rest of the campaign all the time.
I ran a separate campaign for Taylor.
I don't know. It would depend on like what would I automatically choose to go for, and what would I do with what Andy and Nolani would be choosing to do, because I think those might be slightly different answers. But if I were building a party with the information that they've just given, honestly, I might still go with Bard, which was originally my backup class. We would definitely still need someone who can do healing. So
or maybe I would just, if in terms of existing NPCs, maybe Marco would be a fun guy to play.
yeah, I love that.
Because then I
guy.
could still be into the ocean, because Andy, have
Yeah.
fun playing a character who's really into the ocean and its mysteries. but cleric instead of warlock.
If we were to shift to existing NPCs, I would play Gersh.
So true. Yeah.
I think Marco would be fun also, or Nira, but neither of them are really integral to our current.
Yeah. Well, Marco and Gersh would be good NPCs to play if you guys had to play NPCs because
Because they
haven't been in the campaign as much. And so they actually could, like, Baleen or Nira would be,
hard.
we're used to me playing them.
They're yours.
Yeah.
I think if I was to make an entirely new person, though, it would probably be a member of AAA and probably like an Eldritch Knight. I think that'd be
That'd be fun.
That's
yeah.
a fun class.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, if I were making a party, it would sound like we would still need a healer, so I guess I'd probably be a cleric or a bard, because I feel like if I went ranger, I would end up being too close to Malachi. However, if I didn't have to worry about us not having any healers, I'd probably want to try a fighter or a barbarian, which isn't super exciting, but like
Yeah. Would be fun.
I like playing melee fighters.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really fun to play someone who's different from Malachi in that sense, and someone who's just like kind of excited to fight, I guess. I don't know. Not that Malachi like shrugs away from battles, but like I feel like it would be a very different approach to it, which would be really fun.
Yeah. There's a difference between, like, okay, here we go, fight time, versus, like, ah!
I'm ready to draw some blood.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus hell yeah, fight time.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I think a sorcerer would be fun to play in this world, but I wouldn't want to play another sorcerer after we had... Like, I wouldn't want us to have a sorcerer and a paladin in the party again, or a warlock and a paladin, or a warlock and a sorcerer, or whatever.
Yeah.
My astronomy wizard would be a tabaxi, and it would be a Bingus tabaxi.
Incentive for me to have to keep Reagan alive, because I don't want you to play a Bingus tabaxi.
Because I think it's funny, because cats don't like water, allegedly.
I don't know what race I would want to play.
I'd probably just be human. Or maybe like a Triton. Something underwater.
Nice.
I'm picturing a naked, bald, wrinkly cat in a wizard hat and robe.
Honestly, I'd probably go variant human or Aarakocra if Hannah let me or nerfed it somehow, I guess.
I'd probably, especially in this scenario where you've already TPK'd, I'd probably be willing to let you do whatever.
Throw us a bone at that point.
Exactly.
I don't know subclass, though. That I'd have to think on more.
Another question kind of related to character building. If your characters had to class swap with the other PCs, what would their subclass be? Like if Reagan had to be a paladin or warlock, but could be a different type. From Katie on Patreon.
I think Reagan would be a hexblade.
So true.
Finn would be an aberrant mind sorcerer, because that's pretty similar to his vibe right now, just not quite as water themed.
Yeah.
But it would keep the core of Finn is a weird, fucked up being that should not exist.
Yeah.
But what if Finn had to be, or whoever was to be the Sork, had to also be a Sork barb?
Oh, interesting. Oh, well, then I would go, if Finn was a barbarian also, he would be a Storm Herald barbarian with the C subclass.
Oh, I forgot about barbarians. Wow. I don't think Malachi would be one.
No, I was absolutely thinking Mal would have to be the sorcerer.
Yeah.
I cannot picture Malachi as anything other than what he is.
Malachi is so absolutely a paladin at his core, but I think maybe divine soul sorcerer, if only to fulfill like his like mechanical niche. And also, I mean, let's be real, guy wants some help there.
Yeah.
Finn could be a paladin because Finn does have very strong convictions.
That's true.
About a lot of stuff. Like, he does have an oath and a goal that he is completely committed to.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know jack shit about paladins because I like make it a point to not acknowledge paladins and clerics.
Wow. Okay.
So this is really possibly going to piss some people off, but I know that everybody hates Oathbreakers. So statistically speaking, if Reagan was to be a paladin, I think he would be an Oathbreaker.
No, I'm a fan of that take.
I understand that mechanically, but I don't understand it where you're getting it statistically, because people absolutely love Reagan.
But in world, like, he's a problem. No, this is a lot of necromancy. Never mind. Gain a bonus to melee equal to charisma. Maybe. maybe.
Finn, I think Paladin Finn would actually be an even darker character than Warlock Finn.
Yeah, I
Because he'd
agree.
be like Oath of Conquest or
Yeah.
something with like the dream of
Yup.
destroying the air-breathing world.
Wow.
Everyone say thank you to Andy and Taylor for choosing the classes that they did.
Yeah, honestly, we swap you two, we can just do a darker version of this campaign.
Yeah, like Reagan's could go either way with his, but if you swap either of our classes, it's bad.
Ironically, okay, you know what? Now that I've actually, read the Paladin section of the Player's Handbook for the first time in my life,
Wow.
Reagan could absolutely be a Vengeance Pally.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
would be such like a good aligned arc for him, ironically. Messed up. Feels weird.
Yeah.
Reagan's arc could work as a paladin. Finn's would too, but it would just be horrid.
It'd be like the Crusades.
Yikes. Yeah, and Malachi could work as a warlock, but he'd be super different, but I think he would be better as a sorcerer.
Yeah. So true. Okay. Also, kind of speaking of changing the way that we do our characters, from Kay on Patreon, if you had to change the way you voice your characters, what new accent would you give them?
Well, you know what I would do? I would drop my own voice down an octave if possible.
I love this question because it implies that what I'm doing for Reagan is a conscious choice.
I don't really know.
So Reagan was, I'm sure I've said this before, Reagan was originally supposed to have a proper North Country accent, but I have a really bad habit of turning all of my English country accents into Australian accents. And then I added some West Country to make it just proper pirate garbage. So I think if it was not to be proper pirate garbage, I would do like something Baltic. Like Reagan could absolutely work as like an Estonian dock worker, but again, I would have to smoke a lot more cigs to get there.
Sure.
I really don't know. I think honestly, maybe I like wouldn't make Finn's voice as high, like closer to just my normal speaking voice. Because basically, sometimes I find that it's a little hard to be as like dramatic and intense as I want to be when I have to talk like this instead of talking like this.
Yeah.
And he's got like anime protagonist voice syndrome.
You're Yugi.
Because like early on, I was like, oh yeah, like I'll have him talk like a little more like Chipper and higher up because he's like young and happy-go-lucky and naive. But nah, I just got to stick with that.
What does Estonian accent sound like? Is it more Slavic or is it like...
Yeah,
Okay, interesting.
I'm Reagan Starkweather.
that's
Ooh.
giving like full-on Russian.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
He is from the icy north.
Yeah, something kind of weighty and gravelly, which just feels like an Eastern Bloc accent, you know?
Yeah. I feel like for Malachi, I mean, deeper would be ideal, but I don't think I can physically talk as low as I would want to. I don't know, man.
Because I don't think any specific accent would be right for Finn, because the whole point of Gillsbury is that it's just such an unremarkable place. It's like not supposed to map onto any
Yeah.
real world region.
You are pretty accent neutral.
Okay. Question from Kestrel on Patreon. Hannah, what makes an NPC fun to play for you? Who are your favorites to play? And then players, which NPCs are your favorites to play against and why? I can go first if you guys want to think.
Good question, Kestrel. Thank you.
So there's kind of like two things that make an NPC fun to play. I like some of the like dramatic villains are very
Yeah.
fun, and specifically like the High Priestess is very fun for me. I like her kind of like
I like her voice.
bitchy pretentiousness and her voice and her the sorts of airs that she puts on are fun to do, as opposed to like Retval and the Adventurer are both very, very hard. Like I like having those characters around, but they're hard to play because Retval has to sound smart and the Adventurer has to sound like so commanding, whereas the High Priestess is like she's her position is commanding and her magical power is commanding, but she herself is like putting on airs.
A girl boss.
Yeah. And then Ben is also very fun to play. He's very I don't know, I like him. I like his caginess. I like his his sort of charisma where he doesn't necessarily need to seem like he's on top of the world all the time, but instead can just kind of be like, "Hey, whoa, we don't need to have this
just
fight."
a little
It's
guy.
like, I'm just a little guy,
birthday
but then
boy.
also getting you right where he wants you he's fun to play. And then the other
Man, I hate that guy.
the other types of NPCs that are fun for me are the ones that are just very comfortable. So like Nell and Shiloh are both like very easy and comfortable for me to do, and so I like playing them because it's just sort of like those are the ones where I'm most comfortable just like being in the scene and sort of like interacting with the party.
Yeah.
Because they're characters who I understand their headspace very well, and so I'm not having to like think on 6 different levels. It's like I'm just playing a character.
Mm-hmm.
I yield the floor.
Well, I think I know who my favorite NPC to interact with is, and it's Vance.
I thought you were gonna say Nurgle.
You know, it's always a good time when Vance shows up. Love a good Finn Vance
Christ.
scene. What's their deal? No one knows. I don't know. But it's always fun. Early on, I haven't exactly followed this, but I haven't exactly abandoned it either. I thought it'd be very funny to have a dynamic with Vance where like Finn is like a grand epic hero, except for some reason there's one guy he knows who he's always really mean to. But then I was like, no, that's too simplistic. I don't want it to be that Finn is like bullying Vance. I just want it to be an absolutely unintelligible dynamic. I want Vance to be so confused by Finn.
Boy, you've gotten there.
He sure is.
Because it was such like a quick shift in that first episode where we met him, where at first I was like, oh, okay, new cool pirate NPC. And then as soon as I started messing with him, I was like, oh no, this guy's a rube.
And now he's wearing your death ring.
Yeah. I can't wait to see him again.
Wow, love wins.
Maybe you won't. Maybe he'll die.
Ha ha ha, serves him right.
You gave him the death ring.
I would say, again, incredibly predictable of me. My 2 favorite NPCs to interact with are probably Alden and Retval.
Mm-hmm.
Alden, because I, the human, find it incredibly funny when I know that Hannah's throwing me a bone and she knows that she's throwing me a bone, and it's like and you know, like when a dog, you know that TikTok trend of people giving like a food to their dog and they say take a small bite, be gentle, and then the dog like either takes a really small bite or like eats their entire hand. That's how I feel every time Hannah is offering me a scene with Alden. And then with Retval, I find I like it because it's really hard. It is really, really hard for me to play Reagan against Retval in a way that I find good and correct. Because, you know, it's so easy for me as a person, you know, to be like, haha, bravado and wit, and like cutting him off at the knees by making a dick joke. But like that's so disingenuous to the reaction that Reagan would actually have to this person who, you know, he thinks ruined his life, basically. And so it's really challenging to get the mix of defiance and also hatred and also fear that Reagan feels towards Retval is a huge acting challenge. So I'd say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, no surprises here. Definitely, like, the guys who I think of as, like, my NPCs I have a lot of fun with. Like, guys who are from my backstory are really fun because, like, it's, you know, like, you create this sort of, like, base information of something that you know you like to, like, play with, and something that you know is, like, specifically influenced how your character interacts with the world. And then Hannah knows you so well, and she just makes him perfect and, like, fucks you up every time. So Nira, I really like sibling dynamics and exploring those in fiction, and I think they're really tough to get right, but I think Hannah's done a really good job with setting that up in a way that makes it interesting. And also, she's just such a fucking girl boss.
So
Nira
true.
is so cool, so I really like interacting with Nira
Yeah.
because it's probably the most complicated relationship Malachi has. And on the same vein, like, interacting with his moms is really fun too because there's just so much shit there, and I like having those scenes that make you have to get really into it.
Yeah.
I also like, again, the baddies. Like, the Dreamer is really fun to play off of because she's so antithetical to pretty much everything about Malachi, but she knows exactly how to tap into that, too. So, it's like what Nalani was talking about with Redval. It's really a tough thing to figure out how to react to the Dreamer in any given scene. And Hannah always, like, gets under my skin as the Dreamer in a way that really, like, on some levels is frustrating to play against, but that's because it makes me get into character, and Malachi's frustrated because he doesn't know how to react to it, because she's really sort of like sees what she's doing and adjusts from there. She's like very on the fly with how she plays with him, I think, which just makes those scenes sort of both really, really hard and also exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so true. That's good that she comes across that way.
And the adventurer. Actually, you know what? That's not true. I think it's cool when we interact, but it's so hard.
Fucking hate that lady.
Yeah. Everyone else did multiple. So my other favorite NPC to interact with has got to be Baleen. Just because we're friends, and it's fun to hang out.
Baleen is also very fun for me to play.
Like, it's always just a very sort of comforting moment to have an interaction with Baleen.
Yeah.
Because, you know, most times in this campaign, I, as a player, am always a little worried about, like, oh, like, what's going to happen? Like, gotta look out for the angles. Like, who is this person? Can we trust them?
Yeah.
But, like, there's no question. Like, Finn trusts Baleen implicitly with his life. Like, he doesn't have any secrets.
That's nice.
They're just good buds.
Yeah.
I also do love watching you play with Hannah and referring to anecdotes and things that they have done, and watching Hannah have to be like, yeah, when we...
Oh, yeah, that's also
Put
fun.
the-
Just establishing Gillsbury lore on the fly with Baleen.
That is genuinely very fun. Hey, and great segue, Andy, because speaking of Baleen...
I can't wait for old Octo Johnson to finally appear in the campaign. That's a little joke for our patrons. Listen to the Mudbath, everyone.
Speaking of Baleen, Caroline, again, wants to know what it was like the first time Finn told Min and Baleen how the sea was going to swallow the land and everybody would die, and he thought that was good. How did they react?
Great
I've been
question.
thinking about this question ever since I saw it.
Yeah, that is a good question. That's something that, like, I really didn't think about either until I read the question.
Where they're like, ah, Finn.
Yeah, well, and because, so that's the thing, Taylor, is that most people in Gillsbury, when Finn says things like that, are just like, yeah, haha, like, that's nice, Finn, like, you know, very indulgently. But Min and Baleen, like, take him seriously, and so I do think it would probably more of a, like, the sea's gonna do what? Like,
I think there's a few aspects to it. One, Finn doesn't dwell on he doesn't even think about the part where everyone dies.
Until very recently.
Like, that part doesn't occur to him, so he would never bring it up to them. Like, he wouldn't say, the sea's gonna swallow the land and everyone's gonna die. He'd say, like, oh, we're all gonna be hanging out in an octopus's garden under the sea. Won't that be fun?
yeah.
And I think part of it is it's just one of those things. I don't think any of them would be able to tell you when the first time Finn mentioned the sea swallowing the land would be, because they've all known each other for their whole lives, and it's a thing he's basically just always said. So it's something that I think, to a degree, they took it for granted as just a thing about Finn.
Yeah.
It's like how if you've been friends with someone since you were little kids, you don't remember meeting them. They've just always been around.
Yeah.
And that's how it is for Finn's ocean obsession / doomsaying.
Yeah.
Classic Finn.
Yeah. And I think there's also an aspect there, I think especially like for Baleen now, an aspect of kind of like trusting Finn enough to be like the sea swallows the land, but everything is going to be fine anyway. Min's a little bit more practical, and honestly, he's got other things he's thinking about right now. I don't know if he's thought about it in a while, but it's definitely kind of like maybe he doesn't quite believe it, or they all sort of see it as like a faraway thing, right? Like, the sea's not going to swallow the land now.
Right. I think what I said to Ben was that it could be soon, or it could be millennia from now.
Yeah.
Like, so statistically, it's probably not going to happen that soon. So I think it is concerning.
It's like Yellowstone exploding.
Yeah.
you know?
Like, back of your head, it could happen, but it's, like, probably fine.
Yeah.
Would you really dwell on that? Or would you just be like, yeah, okay, anyways?
Yeah.
Because Finn didn't manifest any magical powers till he was a teenager.
True.
Until he had that incident where he almost drowned and then washed up on the beach. Before that, he still had the certitude, but no actual magic to back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer here, because that's a really interesting, like, exchange they must have had. But I think the best answer I can give is that they try not to think about it.
Yeah. I would concur with that. But a lot of the things that are happening right now make you think about stuff like that more.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know what Min is thinking about it now as opposed to what he was thinking about it a few months ago.
Yeah.
Another thing is, in Gillsbury, Finn doesn't talk about it as much as he does when he's out and about. Because when he's constantly meeting new people and going to new places, he's got to spread the word. In Gillsbury, he's already talked to everyone about it. So he doesn't need to bring it up a lot. He just takes it for granted that everyone already knows.
Yeah, so true.
So it doesn't come up as much as it does in this podcast if he was just hanging out with Min and Baleen. There's other stuff that Finn talks about.
Fuck, man. Finn's really just a missionary.
He's literally just an evangelical.
Relatedly, Kay on Patreon asks, do you think Baleen will be able to reintegrate back home one day, or will her harrowing experiences have changed her from her small town ways? I would say, like, she definitely wants to go home, but she definitely, it is like when you get a taste of the kind of like wider ocean and sort of have your eyes opened to the way that things are outside. Like, there's a part of her that is just like, wow, this sucks. I want to be back in Gillsbury with my boyfriend. But there's also like a part of her, like, she said it a couple times. There's been a couple lines where she's like, I guess I'm the farthest from home I've ever been. And it's like, of the three of them, like, Finn wanted to go out and see the ocean, and Baleen was definitely the one who was more into, like, I don't know, she likes doing things and having fun and being kind of, like, outgoing, and so, I don't know, long way to say I don't really know. We'll kind of have to see where she's at the end of the campaign.
Yeah. It's also worth pointing out, though, everyone in Gillsbury has gone through some harrowing stuff now.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, it's never going to be the same as it was there.
Yeah.
So it's like no one from Gillsbury can truly ever go home again, but they can have new homes.
Yeah.
This is really activating my Joseph Campbell boner, for which I apologize. But now that you're verbalizing this, I think it is really funny that Baleen is going on her own parallel hero's journey. Like, she literally, like, she received the call to adventure. She met the mentors, except the mentors were us fuckers and, you know, belly of the beast and all of that. And so, you know, by that metric, she will never be able to return home in the same way. And thinking about that and thinking about the hero cycle made me think about how if this was like a YA novel, Baleen would be the protagonist and we would be like the hot older brother anti-hero characters who, like, maybe one of them would be like allegedly a love interest, but everybody feels really uncomfortable with it and like it's not well addressed in the book. You know.
Not if I was writing this book.
Also, Finn and Baleen are the same age.
I'm saying if this was like a YA book written at the time that, you know, I was a YA reading YA books, that's absolutely how this would go. Like this, like, young naive farm girl and the brooding wolves are protecting. I just think it would be funny. But I also think that Hannah could do a much better job of writing that story contemporarily. That would be really funny and also an interesting inversion of genre.
But I do think what you were saying at the beginning, like, it is, Baleen is definitely one of those NPCs who is very much having her own arc, like, largely off screen, which I think is fun.
Yeah.
Just how it should be.
Like, you could recenter the story to be about Baleen, and there would still be a story.
Yeah.
It'd be a hell of a story.
Apparently she has her own friends in AAA now.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't mind. I'm not bothered at all.
She's got a network.
Remember when she went to jail? Like,
yeah, she was gonna be executed. Mm-hmm. Maybe she took the Ben betrayal personally.
Another question from Brianna, aka Dr. Pepper Bidet on Tumblr. would like to ask Nani and Taylor a question. Do you foresee having to kill Finn?
You better not.
In the PvP, absolutely.
This is a great question, Brie, and I
Yes.
love it. Because both Nani and Reagan, absolutely not. Because, I mean, Reagan and Finn are homies, and Reagan is also a fucking mercenary and has already, been like, you know what? Yeah, no, I'm into this lurker shit. So you know what? If Finn, successfully went dark, I am gonna be his fucking right-hand man.
Wait, is Reagan into the lurker shit now? Because I didn't realize that. That's great.
He's lurker parallel,
All right.
So, what was the wording of the question again?
Do you foresee having to kill Finn? Not Malachi.
Well,
Although I guess you can
Malachi,
answer for Malachi also, but
Either way.
I don't, unless Andy's got something wild up his sleeve. But I can see the world in which that would become a necessity for the safety of the world. But Malachi, I don't think he could do it.
ugh.
Even if he knew
Haha.
that was what had to be done, I don't think he could personally swing the sword.
Goddamn.
Wow.
Good to know.
Like, I think he might have that, like, crisis of conscience where he'd be, like, going to do it and been like, fuck, I really can't do this.
Wow.
And then Nira runs in from the side and
Yeah.
just stabs Finn in the heart.
And then Vance appears out of nowhere and starts teabagging him.
Oh, he could never. Vance would also have a crisis of conscience if he had to kill Finn.
Or if Malachi had to do it, it would be like a murder-suicide, maybe. Like, if Malachi had to do it, he'd probably be like, Finn, buddy, I love you. Like, that, like the embrace and, like, telling him that.
Oh, like Jon Snow and Daenerys.
and then stab through the both of them or something, because I don't think he would want to live with that
Oh.
shit. But
Oh, that's good
Or
stuff.
Malachi could kill Finn if Malachi was already dying.
no.
No.
Wow. Goddamn.
That's the thing. He thinks he's got all of these, like, grand, like, he wants to be so selfless, but when it comes down to it, there's some things where he's like, he's just a guy. Like, he's not some ideal moral, like, he wants to be perfect moralistically, and he's not, obviously, because nobody is. But yeah, I think that is one of the things that he'd have too much trouble to actually follow through with, unfortunately,
Wow.
So
Just
true.
a man.
for the world.
Not a hero.
I know I didn't get asked this directly, but I'm going to weigh in, which is Andy, as a player, don't foresee it, but I wouldn't rule it out. Just as I don't
Gotta keep us guessing.
see this campaign ending with us, like, turning against each other.
Wow, that'd be something.
I just think it's going to be more satisfying if we are a team. But I don't know. Honestly, it's hard to say. Who knows what's going to happen?
In the Dark campaign, where Malachi's a warlock and Finn is a paladin, absolutely.
I do think that there's an element to Finn that is always on guard for Malachi trying to kill him.
What?
Wow.
It was one little poke in the calf.
Well, here's the thing. A, you did not hesitate to stab him. B,
because I
just
knew it wasn't gonna hurt you.
in listening, because I listen to everything a lot when I'm editing, I've noticed that that it does just come up a lot, situations where we joke about Malachi harming Finn. Like, there's many times where, like, something will be happening. Anytime Malachi is, like, walking towards Finn with a weapon drawn, I always go, like, oh no, it's happening. Which is something that I didn't realize was such a trend, but it really is. So, yeah. It's occurred to Finn that Malachi might try to kill him someday.
That's really funny.
I think ever since, wasn't there some moment where, like, Nurgle recoiled from Malachi's rock early on?
Oh, I think so.
Was
Yeah.
There was some
Oh.
weird interaction. I think ever since that, it's been in the back of Finn's mind that, like,
Yeah.
we may be at cross purposes someday.
I feel like Finn and Reagan have a lot of like side moments of doing brainless shit together while Malachi's like actually doing work or like trying to solve a problem or something. So I think Reagan probably couldn't even kill him, but Reagan just wouldn't want to.
Malachi wouldn't either. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And let me be clear, Finn doesn't want that to happen. Finn doesn't want him and Malachi to be at odds. Like, they're friends and it would break his heart, but he's a little wary of it.
Malachi couldn't kill either of you, even if you were like trying to kill him.
Even though I have been begging.
Basically, like, the forces that you've both sworn yourselves to are not like, as far as you know, not currently opposed, but, like,
Right.
as the power shifted and depending on the way that the chips fall, the powers that you serve could become against each other, and so that raises questions.
And that's the thing. I think in that situation, Malachi would hold to his oaths, and in that he wouldn't just let Finn like do whatever. But
Boo.
he's kind of latched on to Finn and Reagan as the only people who he like fundamentally like trusts and like cares about. I mean, like, he cares about a lot of people, but like Malachi's very attached to you as the only people who he doesn't feel have abandoned him and such, and he would never want to do that to them either, and he would never be able to, outside of our eventual hopeful PvP for fun. If either of them were attacking him, I don't think he'd be able to make a move against them.
Wow.
Huh.
So true. So then, this seems kind of connected to this. For the players, from the beginning of the campaign, have you had an idea of your character's intended arcs, and has the trajectory there changed at all or evolved as the campaign has gone on? From Meg.
I think basically when we started, I knew Finn's basic premise, like who he was as a pitch, and some general ideas about like his personality and everything. And then I had general ideas about how I thought going out into the world would affect him, because obviously that was going to happen in the story, was him seeing more of the world. And I didn't really have a specific path in mind, but I had ideas, and still do have ideas, about what it would mean for his worldview to just expand so rapidly, and how that would interact with his previous worldview. And basically, I knew there's gonna be conflict there. I didn't know, and I would say I still don't know how exactly that conflict's gonna be resolved, but we'll see. It's been slower than I imagined it would be at the outset, partly just because there's a lot going on with the plot. You know, we don't always have time to focus on Finn grappling with what it means for the sea to swallow the land. And also, because Finn is so much fun to play as an oblivious, like, maybe evil but doesn't realize it and doesn't mean to be character, that, like, it's hard for me to let go of it. Where, like, if Finn does ever, like, complete his moral awakening and grows a conscience and is like, whoa, maybe murdering everyone on land is bad, that takes away all my best jokes. But who knows how that would change his relationship with the Lurker. Would he turn away from the sea swallowing the land, or would he just feel a little worse about it? Or would he get really into learning how to cast a 50th level water breathing spell on everyone? Who can say? Tune in next time, listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a complex question, because my answer in an ideal world and from a storytelling sense differs from the answer that is real when we are impeded by such things as mechanics and being, you know, ostensibly a form of entertainment that is produced for an audience to listen to. And it's further complicated by the fact that we really did not have an idea where Hannah was going to go with the plot. Like, call me an idiot, but I didn't expect, like, this level of political intrigue and, like, there to be, like, actual complex shit going on about, like, governmental corruption and theocracy and colonialism. I just signed up for a happy, fun pirate time. All of which is to say that in a world in which this is such a stupid answer.
In a world
in which this wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, Reagan's arc would have looked different, because I would have wanted him to fight the sorcerer side of him for a lot longer. I would have, you know, if it was all up to me, kind of similar to what Andy was saying, like, we just don't have time to get into, like, all the inner turmoil that's happening. And so in, you know, a novelized world or whatever, I would definitely have wanted, you know, I wouldn't have wanted to resolve Reagan's issues with his magic as early as we had to, kind of purely for mechanical reasons, because if I was literally just sitting 3 levels below everybody else having multi-classed functionally, that would have just been a mechanical bummer.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a sacrifice that I had to make, was being like, okay, we're going to kind of just resolve this because it needs to be for practicality. But yeah, ideally I would have wanted that to be a longer running thing. But I didn't have a super concrete arc for him beyond that, other than really like, yeah, this guy, you know, has elements of being a classical fantasy chosen one, and he fucking hates it and wants to be anything but, was kind of what I walked into it with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like as with any D&D game, you start off not entirely knowing how your guy's gonna be when you start playing them actually, but I definitely had like the themes that I wanted to explore with Malachi and sort of like the basic, you know, his driving forces and what I wanted to try and touch on with him in mind from the get-go. Like even like as you're creating them, you're like, okay, I want to play a guy who blah blah blah, and I don't know how much I want to actually like say what I intended that arc to be, because I don't know if any of it is or will be spoilers. But like when I made my playlist for Malachi, like way back at the beginning, I'm like, all right, this is how I think the arc is gonna go and how I would love for it to go, and so far it's been pretty close to that. Like I knew I wanted to explore the idea of responsibility and also sort of like the lack of direction that he struggled with the whole time. Got a little bit of a Hamlet situation going on where he can't quite get himself to make the decision to do the thing that he thinks needs to be done or whatever. But I think as a character, the way he reacts to some of those elements has definitely evolved a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that is just like we're getting into these guys and this is how they're coming out. But I think I didn't necessarily intend for him to be as recalcitrant as he struggled with being for a long time.
So would you say that you like, sorry to cut you off, but like would you say that you had like themes and stuff in mind, but you didn't necessarily know how they were going to resolve?
Yeah, like I had an idea of like an arc that I wanted, and I knew we were going to explore colonialism, because I remember when I sent Hannah my backstory talking about like how he left the army because he's like, oh shit, we're doing the horrible stuff. Hannah's like, wow, this is perfect, I want to do colonialism. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, cool, we're gonna have some political stuff here. So yeah, I guess like I had an idea of what a good arc for him might be based on the themes that I wanted to work around, and obviously nothing's gonna be exactly the way, I can't predict it exactly, but
yeah, so that actually kind of leads into the second part of this question, which was, for Hannah, how early did you have an idea of the campaign's trajectory? Have you had the idea for the main antagonists and or story beats since the beginning, or have they changed since the campaign's conception? So I'm going to try to do this as briefly as possible, so you don't have to just listen to me ramble. But, like, from the very beginning, like, as soon as we picked Seafaring Campaign, before we even had characters, I kind of, like, sat down and I was like, what does, like, the sea represent? And what I kind of gravitated toward was this idea of, like, chaos, and kind of, like, vastness and unknowability. And so I set up this, like, fundamental tension from the beginning of kind of, like, law versus chaos. And so when I was giving you guys your initial lore, it was very bare bones, but it did include, like, there's one kingdom that's kind of the biggest kingdom, which has been, like, getting even bigger lately. And that was, like, the little bit which Taylor especially, like, really grabbed. And that was kind of what I knew about Lithios. But I didn't have any of the specific antagonists or anything. And I didn't have a, like, arc planned out until, because I wanted to know what your characters were like. So then, like, we played Bluefin Tropical Resort, and I sort of got an idea of who the characters were. And then I sort of, like, sat down and went, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do kind of, like, Benswith, and we're going to do this short little Kuatoa thing, and then we're going to start kind of, like, hitting these beats. We're basically, like, we're going to do a few small adventures, and then we're going to hit Gillsbury, Dragon Islands, and then we're going to go really tackle Lithios and use that to kind of catapult us into the second half of the campaign, where we'll actually go out to the rest of the seas. Like, that plan has been planned since pretty early.
Nice.
The part that was Lithios expanded in scale because I've talked about this at least once, but, like, I kind of sat down, like, around when we did the Dragon Isles and kind of came up with Retval and texted Nani about the lore. Like, that was when I came up with all the big antagonists, and that was also when I finally locked down that the Adventurer was going to be what she was, which is maybe later than you'd expect. I actually didn't, like, when you first met the adventurer, I didn't know what her deal was yet. I had an idea, but I hadn't locked it down yet. And then I just recently, it feels recent, but it was months ago, like, sat down and made a full plan for the rest of the campaign. So at this point, and, like, ever since we got to Angel Isle, I have known, like, what the arcs are that are going to get us to the end of the campaign.
Ooh.
So at this point, it's all planned out, but until then, I was kind of, like, laying out the chunks in front of me as I went. But since from the very beginning, I had this kind of central tension in mind.
Wait, actually, this makes me want to ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You have to send it to us on DM.
I have to say it in the form of an answer. Hannah, has there ever been a time that one of us has thrown you like a massive curveball? Like, has any one of us ever done something that's had you actually like large scale? I know like small scale, I've done some dumb shit, but like, has there ever been anything large scale where you're like, fuck, okay, I gotta reorganize some things?
A little bit. A little bit in ways that I can't talk about. And just in terms of like some of the stuff that I have planned currently right now, I'm worried isn't going to work, and I think I might have to rewrite. But we haven't gotten there yet. I think so. Like deciding to go do a heist from Solaris was not something I expected. Like that was not how I expected you. I think the way you guys reacted to Nira was not what I expected. I genuinely thought like your first meeting with her was gonna be you'd see her and then split from her.
Yeah.
I like didn't expect you to stick with her, and so that whole diversion before you got back to AAA was unexpected. I didn't expect you to go back to Benswith. I didn't expect you to hang out with Nira for as long as you did. Which is part of why episode 19 is like 3 hours long or whatever, because I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants the whole time. So it wasn't as tightly paced.
Wow, peek behind the screen.
Yeah. But other than that, nothing that I couldn't see coming far enough in the future that it didn't feel like a rewrite, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That reminded me of like, I think part of the reason, like, the aspects of Malachi's arc that I wasn't certain about is because when I gave Hannah my backstory, I left a lot of blanks for her to fill. Where it's like, because I wanted Malachi to have this mystery of he doesn't know who this person is. He doesn't know how this happened to him. He doesn't know this. And so it was really interesting to find out, like, how she made all of that come together in a way that still managed to fulfill the arc that I was thinking of, even not knowing how those things would turn out.
Yeah.
I've just got like pages and pages of like notes and texts from like our earlier days, like that I would be like texting Hannah or Nalani or whoever, like just like, oh my God, Malachi, blah, 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 and just like pages and pages of it. And it's all like pretty much still true.
Yeah.
Hannah's really good at this, is
Hannah's
the point.
Smart. Hannah's so smart, and she knows so much about what we want.
I haven't known, like, Andy and I have talked pretty directly about Finn's arc. I have not talked to you two nearly as directly. So a lot of it is guesswork on my part. So
it really is. Really, like, I have not once said, Hannah, here's what I want to do. I've been like, wow, this is what he's thinking. Like, or wow, this would be so crazy. What if you did this to us?
Yeah, there was a lot of, haha, what if we got captured before you got captured?
It's called manifesting.
Oh, yeah, I guess Finn escaping was a pretty big curve.
Oh, that
like
was
again,
so
like
good.
I've said, I had a thought that I left the door a crack open, but I absolutely didn't expect it. That was a curveball for sure.
And what a curveball.
Okay, this is thematically connected and might just kind of lead into some of the stuff you've been talking about, but Nikki on Patreon wants to know, have any parts of playing your characters gotten harder or easier with time, either mechanically or emotionally?
Oh, Nikki, have they? I mean, like I said before, it took a while to really feel like I was getting the groove of Malachi, so that has been easier in some ways where it's just like I don't necessarily have to think as much about how he acts on like a subconscious level. But, you know, as the campaign goes on and things grow more complex, it becomes a lot harder for me as the player to sort of deal with playing those things, I guess. Because it's not that it's like, he's still like more or less the same guy, but with every new thing that happens, there's more to consider in how I approach his reaction to a situation, like consciously. Because it's like, oh, like maybe at the beginning of the campaign, he would have just like said, fuck you, or wow, this sounds great, let's do it. But, like, you know, at this point, he's got a lot of shit that's gone down that I have to think about when I'm like, okay, this would definitely inform him to act more this way than maybe he would have before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of similar to what I was saying before about the way that Reagan's arc kind of had to happen sooner rather than later for mechanical ease is that fun fact, it gets easier to play your guy mechanically when you're, using your guy's abilities. So that made a pretty significant change, as well as multi-classing, which is a decision that I so firmly stand by. I caught a decent amount of flack for it at the time, which was perhaps justified because, maybe on paper it doesn't look like the most optimized thing to do. But I really enjoy playing that juxtaposition of, being really good at something that you're kind of bad at. And just like his personality, it just worked out really well. Emotionally, the biggest issue for Reagan is that his shit happened already.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of alluded to this maybe in a mud bath, but kind of the concept that Reagan's very much stuck in the past, Finn is very much fixated on the future, and Mal is struggling with the present. And I think the fact that Reagan has made a lot of breakthroughs in progress with unpacking and healing from his trauma and what happened to him before the campaign started is, good from a health perspective for the guy. But for me as the player, it does kind of cut off, options, because in a lot of ways, my shit's kind of resolved. Like, I'm not saying that Reagan is recovered or healed, but I truly am the one who doesn't have a long view or a long-term goal in mind, or, even is super invested in what's going on in the present. And we've alluded to that as, being a difficulty, but I also do think it's genuinely really cool that, it's kind of okay, I could go any sort of direction from here. That kind of possibility is cool. But in the moment, it can kind of make decision making kind of
It's so true, because that affects how Finn and Malachi react around him too, because it makes the dynamic of the group a lot more interesting to have this guy who's he's still here, so obviously stuff's still going on. I mean, absolutely makes things more complicated in situations in that interesting way, because you're you can't be certain of what Reagan's going to think or do, because he's sort of, like you said, sort of over that one hill, more or less. He's on the downhill from the peak of that.
Mm-hmm.
Calling it a resolution feels too...
I'm in my denouement.
Yeah.
You're in your climax, and Finn is at the start of the uphill.
Yeah, I think the thing that has gotten the easiest is just inhabiting Finn and just sort of instinctively being Finn, whereas early on, everything was conscious. Everything that happened, everything that someone said, I was okay, so what's Finn's deal? How would he feel about this?
Yeah.
How would his thoughts on that be? But now, at this point, I've established what his thoughts on all these different things are, so I can react much more reflexively when someone mentions premarital sex, for instance. I already know Finn's stance on that. Which then frees me up to think about even more things, slightly more complex things, where it's so what's his take on this and this?
Yeah.
Something that's gotten harder is maintaining Finn's balance, because basically there's some obvious glaring contradictions at the core of who he is, which there's only so long those can be maintained before it has to bubble up and Finn has to come into conflict with himself. And that hasn't really happened. That dam has not broken yet.
Yeah.
But the more time goes by, the harder it is to avoid that dam breaking. Basically, the fact that Finn worships a monster is basically a cultist and accepts that the sea is going to swallow the land and is enthusiastic about it. But also, I want him to be a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the whole point of the character when I made him. I was oh, this is a very cool contradiction. Let's explore that. But the more you explore it, the more that contradiction builds, and something's gotta give.
Yeah, so true.
So basically, I would say the hard thing is holding out until it's the narratively appropriate moment for that conflict to surface.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
There have been moments where I was that just doesn't work. but there's no time to dwell on that now. Later.
Yeah. There have been so many moments where we're just like, wow, that was very important, but we got to get out of this exploding building or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I know. Which is always the thing with D&D. It's hard to you don't want to let the action fall too much, especially once we reach this point in the campaign. The times when I can give you guys breaks are fewer and farther between because there's always another problem and something else.
And
you
it's
have to
good
do.
because, like, God knows if we were like, if this were real, we wouldn't have time to. Okay, let's sit down and talk about what just happened.
Yeah, and not to mention the inherent, like, difficulty of the fact that when we had more time to talk about our feelings and shit, we didn't trust each other.
Exactly.
You know, and now that we're at the point of being like kind of ride or dies, it's like, well, we're just gonna have to wait.
It's like I was having so much trouble with getting Malachi to share stuff because, like, he wasn't quite at that point where, like, all of the people around were people who he would share stuff to, and we hadn't been in those situations yet that really necessitated any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, that's certainly gotten easier to talk about some things. That's something that's both emotionally and in some ways mechanically much better for me these days.
So true.
Because there were times when I'm like, wow, I really wish I could just say this right now, and there's absolutely no way in hell that Malachi would feel like he would do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, one thing that I would say I'm still working on, but has gotten better at least from the beginning, is using my spell slots, because I've always just been so like hesitant to actually cast my spells, because I'm like, oh, I only have 2 slots.
Yeah.
But I'm getting better.
That's true. You are. One more question, which I think we've touched on a bit, but I want to at least mention it. For Hannah, I know you've hinted a bit on mud baths before, but do you have a process for writing and planning stuff? Are you more so the type of DM that plans a whole world and lets them loose, or do you plan a story and see what they do with it? Yeah, to answer your second, from Alabaster on Instagram, to answer your second question first, I'm absolutely a plan a story and see what they do with it DM. I don't really do like sandbox-y campaigns. The closest I get is like for one of my other games that I run that's not a podcast, I'm running Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is a module, and that one has more like there's locations and the party can kind of pick where to go, but even then, like, I've put the locations together into a story with a trajectory. Like, that's just how my brain works. And for the podcast, for sure, like I just talked about, there was an arc and you think about stories and stuff like that. In terms of my, like, process, and even, one more thing, even as a player, like, what I like the most about D&D when I'm a player is getting to, like, have the story in front of me and control how my character reacts to it. Like, I've played in some campaigns that were more, like, open world, but I always prefer the ones that are, like, there's a story that the DM... Like, I love to follow when a DM gives me breadcrumbs. I just want to see what the story is. As far as my, like, process for writing and planning stuff goes, I have a, like, Google Drive folder that has 1 document per arc. And we are currently, as of where the episodes that are out are, so, like, episode 50, is in arc, we're in my 11th document. Episode 50 is the very beginning, of arc 11 is episode 50.
Ooh,
yeah.
tingles.
And so we have had, like, every time we go into a new arc, I, like, sit down, I make a new document, and I usually, like, lay out the basics of kind of, like, okay, this is, like, the order things are gonna happen in, and then I go through and I'm finding monster stat blocks I kind of plug in, and those are usually the things I do later. Like, I start with the what's gonna happen here, and then I kind of go, okay, so like my basic outline at the beginning will have, like, a big monster fight, like they encounter a monster, and then I go back and find that monster later and decide what it's going to be and put it in. Yeah, that's the basics of my writing and planning. In order for more, I would have to take you much more in depth into my...
Hannah's mind palace.
But there is a method to it. Okay. Lightning round. Questions that we should be able to answer in 1 sentence. Everyone get ready. And then we will finish it out with our final question. From Alabaster on Instagram, what do you think each character's favorite type/shape of pasta is?
You have to call our names.
Finn.
Actually, I think it would be a novelty kind of pasta that was shaped like little fish.
Wow.
Because while he would never eat a real fish, pasta shaped like fish, that would just be fun and interesting.
So true. Reagan.
Tortellini, and I don't know why.
Malachi.
Ooh, interesting. Gnocchi.
So true. From Runcible Shaw on Instagram, who does everyone want to kiss? I
Okay,
don't know if this
everyone
means
as
your
in the characters or the player.
It is not clear.
Unclear in the question. I would say characters, but if
Come
you want to tell
on.
me who you want to kiss, go on.
This is about to get saucy, folks.
Truth or dare?
Let's just spin a bottle.
Taylor, you go first.
Me? So far, Malachi doesn't really want to kiss anybody.
Wow, lame of him.
If he had to, he would probably kiss Marco or
Wow.
Quarion. Or I would say Reagan, but I feel like that'd be a life or death situation because otherwise he'd be terrified of ruining the relationship.
I was gonna say Malachi's like the opposite of demisexual. He's only willing to kiss people who he like does not know and has not interacted much with.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Who do I want to kiss?
Yeah.
Well, that's a secret I'll never tell. XOXO.
Nani.
Reagan most wants to kiss Alden at the present moment. I want to kiss most people.
Andy.
I don't think Finn really has any other NPCs who he's like actively wanting to kiss. He gives Nurgle a kiss goodnight every night,
Aww.
so he wants to do that on a regular basis. But that's not really romantic.
I would hope
Oh.
not.
Let me be clear.
I want to change my answer. Reagan wants to kiss Rosie right on her mushy nose.
Wow, it's not mushy, she's a robot, it's metal.
It's still mushy.
Ooh.
Andy, after this, I'm gonna go kiss my dogs who are downstairs.
Wow.
Oh, and my girlfriend, of course.
From Lucas on Instagram, tag yourself. Which Angel Isle bar are you?
Big Tim.
Wet bar.
I don't remember any of them.
You're the hookah one.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
the mushroom one.
Yeah.
I also, now we've used up the 3 that I knew, even though I'm the one who came up with them.
You can still be one of them.
That's true.
You could just say anything
That's
and just
true.
declare that it's a bar that's on Angel Isle.
Yeah.
It's true. You can make up a bar right now.
Hannah is the statue of the angel herself.
Honestly, I'm that casino by the waterfront. And then last question. Thank you all so much for joining us on this journey. Last question from Katie on Patreon. What has been the hardest part and the best part about making a D&D campaign into a podcast?
I'll say right now, the best part is I can listen to whatever the fuck I said last time and forgot about. I love being able to listen back to stuff and know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you the hardest part is the making it into a podcast part. While the rest of you are la-di-dawing, doing I don't know what, I'm toiling away in the podcast mines.
Yeah. And we all appreciate you so much.
Which is another way to say the editing, the production, all of the stuff that happens after we record, it takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's rewarding.
Give us money.
But oh boy, is it time consuming. Yeah, give us money, because I basically work a second job making Ship of Fools. And I deserve to be rich beyond my wildest dreams for it, I think.
Yeah, he sure does.
For the low, low price of $5 a month, you too can feed your Landy Latai.
Yeah. The best part is having fans. That owns
It's
so
really
much. The first time I
cool.
saw fan art of our characters, I had to stand up and take a lap because I was so excited. Like,
Same.
it's just so cool that a thing we made is a thing that people enjoy and care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, fans.
Yeah, I think a major plus is like having a concrete reason to, you know, sit down and take 4 hours each week to play D&D with my friends. Like that's pretty, you know, cuz it's so easy for that to, you know, become just so impossible to do when, you know, we're all adults who live in disparate locations and have jobs and shit. And so to have a reason to like be invested in this and commit to this is really good for me. The hardest part for me is, again, kind of what I said earlier, balancing what I would love, like in an ideal, emotional, cinematic, textual version of the story to be versus, you know, the fact that we are entertainment, we are something that does get produced and something that has mechanical stuff going into it. And also that we're ostensibly a comedy. Like, that can be actually pretty tricky, is walking the line between, like, you know, there absolutely should be moments of depth and gravitas, and moments that shouldn't have bits in them, but then, again, we are a comedy. So that can be a difficult line to walk, I think.
One thing that is tough, in addition to what Nolani was talking about, just like the trying to find that balance between what you think would be like so true to what's going on in campaign and what needs to happen in this medium.
Yeah.
But also just like the fact that specifically in making a podcast, like I find it really difficult to contend with the idea that like someone could like, you know, see my character in a way that I didn't intend him to come across or something like that. And like trying to know that like I can't control, I mean, I can control what my character does, but I can't control everyone's like understanding or perception of him. And it's really tough to think about sometimes, because sometimes I'll do things and I'm like, I know that this is not necessarily a great thing for him to do or say or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like, but I know why he's doing it, and I know that he blah, 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 blah. But it's hard to know that you don't really fully have ownership over the characters anymore.
Yeah. So true.
It's very cool to know that they're out there in the world, but it's also a little scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think similar to what Nani was saying, the hardest part for me is that whenever you're playing, but like double when you're DMing, like any choice, whether it's like planning out a big story beat or whether it's literally just like what is this monster going to do on its next turn, you're having to balance like what is best for the story with like what is best for us as like the people that I'm playing the game with. And then there's also these other factors of like, well, what's best for each character's individual arc, but and also like what's best for each individual person, which doesn't always line up.
Yeah.
And so then to like throw the extra factor of like what's fun to listen to and like what is honest to our audience, just having that extra factor in is something I have to think about, is like very difficult. But I think the best part is like kind of because it's so hard and because it demands this extra layer of attention and like effort and like craft, it's very fun to get to watch all of us like bring our A game. Like I love when I like throw one of you guys something that I know is a hardball, like a surprising development in the story, or a like an NPC you weren't expecting to have to talk to, or an NPC who's reacting in a way you weren't expecting to, and I just get to see you guys like step up to the plate and like really bring your acting and storytelling A game is like really, really fun. And just, yeah, getting to kind of like tell that collaborative story together and then share it with people who care about it enough to listen to 50 episodes and send us questions is really delightful.
It really rules to know that people actually like to listen to it.
Yeah, we're putting in some sort of impact.
Every single time I see that someone has listened to something or someone's does fan art or any of that stuff, it's just like every time the thrill is just as high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for being our dopamine, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
And thank you for sending us your questions. We really appreciate all of the ones we got. Those were great questions. Got us thinking. Got us talking, as you heard.
I haven't used my brain this much in literally 3 years.
Yeah.
So.
And thank you so much for sticking with us for 50 episodes. And we're excited to hopefully have you stick with us through the end of the campaign.
We'll see you there.
Yeah. Until we get there, we'll see you on the open seas.
And hey, if you want to hear more of our stuff, subscribe to Patreon.
Yeah, subscribe to Patreon. Follow us on social medias at ShipOfFoolsCast, patreon.com/ShipOfFools. Okay, now we'll see
Thank you
on the open seas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.